If I had, excuse me, one phrase to describe Hardcore Henry, that would be the most ludicrously absurd, unbelievably testosterone-filled masterpiece I have ever seen in my entire life. Okay, guys, this movie was amazing. Now, it's pretty simple. Premise is pretty simple. You got a dude who went through some life-threatening injury, comes back as they rebuild him as a cyborg, and his wife gets kidnapped. So he goes after his wife. It's so great. Oh my goodness. The whole time I'm like watching this movie going, this is amazing. This is so good. Now, obviously, the big selling point that sets this movie apart is the fact that it's all shot from first person, which I didn't have a problem with in terms of motion sickness. There were a couple times where I didn't get queasy. I guess it unsettled me a little bit, but that's generally when if he got hit and would go rolling across the ground, so the camera was just moving really fast. That kind of made me go, ugh. But overall, nothing really set me apart. I don't know if that'll be the same for everyone. You obviously want to go in with your own caution. I did hear that the farther back you sit in the theater, the less it impacts you. I don't know if that's true or not, but take that with for what it is. So, in terms of cinematography, this movie was incredible. It was virtually shot, if you didn't know nothing about it or haven't seen anything of it, it's virtually shot from a dude's point of view where he has GoPro strapped to his face. That's it. So, not everything that they do, but almost everything they do is legit. And it actually really helps immerse you. There's one part I remember where he's climbing on the outside of a building. So, I mean, he's looking down and you're like, oh, geez, he's on top of a building. And he was actually on top of a building. And he goes and he jumps to a window and he grabs it. And then, you know, the classic one hand slips and he's like, oh. And it really just makes you go like, oh no, I'm going to fall. Oh wait, I'm just watching a movie. It was so cool. All of the stunts that they did were absolutely incredible. I'm sure that there was lots of CG, not lots of CGI, but I'm sure that there was CG incorporated. I couldn't tell. There was one part where I was like, okay, there's no way they did that, at least without like wiring. You know, I'm sure that was, I don't know if I'd say a green screen, but a heavily structured set, I guess. And then there was one part where the CG was just terrible, and I just had to go, wow, really? Are we back in the 80s? But other than that, in terms of cinematically, it was great. There's one scene with Charlton Copley. I don't know if that's how you say his name, but I don't care. I've been a fan of his since District 9, and this is his crowning performance. He is absolutely unbelievable in this movie. Without giving anything away, let's just say that he just really puts his acting to the test in this movie. He is so varied and so funny. This movie was so much funnier than I expected it to be. I laughed a ton in this movie. So anyways, there's going backwards. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. This movie was great. But there's just this scene that involves him, probably about 2/3 of the way through the movie, that it was just unbelievable how they were able to shoot that and make it seem so seamless. I won't say anything because I don't want to spoil for those that, you know, believe it or not, there is actually stuff to spoil in the movie. You wouldn't think that. But essentially this movie, now I am one that I love great writing, I love character development, I love backstory, I love lore, all that stuff. This movie, there's none of that. When I said at the beginning that his wife gets kidnapped and he's going after his wife, that is all this movie is. And it knows that, and that's why I think it succeeds. It doesn't try to be some, I don't know, some super serious thing. It doesn't try and take itself so seriously. It knows how silly it is. It knows how ludicrous it is, and it takes that and just runs with it. It just bolts with this premise, and it's just, you can really tell that all of the actors, Charlton Copley, oh my gosh, he's just amazing. But you can really tell that they were just having so much fun with this movie. You know, they still wanted to show up and do a good job, obviously, but they were there. They knew that it was kind of a silly premise and that it was supposed to be a little outlandish, and they just ran with it. And it was just pulled off beautifully. Kind of going again back to how it was shot, there's just so much stuff that they pulled off that I just want to know how they did it. You know, that's, I mean, I'm no film major, you know, I don't know anything about filming techniques or anything like that. But when you see movies, you always want to know how they do stuff. As I get older and I just actually learn good things from the internet, you know, you learn kind of things in there, like, oh, when someone's bleeding on set, generally they do it this way, or when they're doing an explosion, you know, they might do it this way. And so there's so many things in this movie where I just don't understand how they did it, how they pulled it off. I was reading this thing where the stuntmen were so professional that the only injuries they suffered were, it was five something, like five, I don't think it was five broken bones. I want to say it was like five sprains and one chipped tooth. And that's it. And you watch this movie and go, how did they do that with no injuries? Like, it is insane, the stunts that they pull off. Another thing I really enjoyed about this movie that helped it feel really authentic, which is something I actually really liked about Wolfenstein: The New Order, the game, is in that game, there's subtitles, but there's a point where you're on a train with some Germans in Wolfenstein, and the bad guys that are just like walking around are just speaking German. There's no subtitles. There's no nothing. They're just speaking German. You have no idea what they're saying. And this movie does the same thing. It's set in Russia. And so there'll be, as he's like running down the street or some bad guys catch him, they go up and they're in his face and they're speaking Russian, and you have no idea what they're saying. You're like, okay, this guy's obviously pissed. He's speaking Russian at me. What is he even saying? And every once in a while they'll do subtitles if it's something that's critical to the story. But generally, yeah, you just have these guys speaking Russian, and that's so cool. It's not, you know, guys speaking English with a Russian accent. It's not that. They're speaking straight up Russian, and that's awesome because I really think that helps give authenticity and help immerse you into the film. I guess the only other thing to say is that the acting, I mean, I already touched on Charlton Copley, or like, just, yeah, whatever. But the acting from the other actors was actually surprisingly good. The villain was really, really good. He was kind of quirky, but in a way that worked, I think. The guy that plays Henry's wife was really good. She actually, honestly, I think she could have played like a Jennifer Lawrence double. Like, there were points where I would just look at her and go, she looks a lot like Jennifer Lawrence. That's just a little tidbit. It's not like that matters at all. So this movie, I just cannot recommend it highly enough. If I had to guess, I would guess it's more of a male-intended audience. So, girlfriends, wives, you made your husband sit through that chick flick last week, so you gotta go with him to this. It's awesome. Brings me to the end. I have to give this movie a 9 out of 10. It is so awesome, so much fun, so action-packed, and just done so well. For parents, it's rated R for a reason. The biggest thing is this movie is so violent. That is something else I wanted to touch on, is that you watch rated R movies and you expect it to not be censored. And obviously, rated R movies go to a point before it passes beyond R into NC-17 or whatever. But generally, you go to rated R movies because you're like, okay, they're not going to treat me like a baby. They're going to show me stuff, and a lot of the times they still will cut to off screen, or they'll only, you know, if someone's gone up to stab someone, they'll show like the knife go up and then, you know, maybe start to go in and then cut away. This movie does not do that at all. This is one of probably the most violent movie I have ever seen in my entire life. It is brutal. From the opening credits, when you watch it, the opening credits just make you cringe up until the closing shot. This movie is brutal. So it's incredibly violent. Language was, you know, there was definitely some. I wouldn't say, I mean, it's not as bad as some movies, like where they're dropping F-bombs every other word. There's definitely some in there, but for what it was, they're actually, you know, if you're counting it out to curse words permitted, if you're into that, there really wasn't that much. There is some nudity. You know, nudity is one of those things where I don't, I don't have a problem with it as long as it's helpful to the story. And, you know, the nudity in this movie was really just for the sake of having nudity, which in my mind is just, ugh, well, that's annoying, you know, whatever. But if you like that, there's the somewhat extended scene that takes place in a strip club, so you do see some boobies there. And I think that's really it. Yeah, so I I highly recommend this movie. It is so awesome, so much fun. I loved every second of it. I immediately wanted to go see it again the second I got out. So yeah, just just go see it. If you guys have any other recommendations, you know, anything else you want me to review, go for it. Just let me know, and well, I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.